Remember the Golden Text group of Alcoholics Anonymous in Hollywood, Florida. It's great to be here with you. It's already been a great night. We've already heard the experience, strength, and hope of Alcoholics Anonymous. We've already had Shannon point toward the book that we're going to refer to, and I already feel encouraged. I feel encouraged. I mean, with God, all things are possible. And when Shannon came to our faith-based treatment center to speak, you know, at first, I was a little judgy. You know, at first when I saw her, I said, oh. You know, we have a couple people in there for our churchy type of treatment center, and I said, there's going to be a thing going on here. And I was wowed then, and I was wowed tonight. Because the power of God permeates through every sex, denomination, color, creed, does not care where you came from, doesn't matter how much money you make, doesn't matter who your family is. We've seen people that are Fortune 500 people that we listen to on the radio die from this thing, and we've seen people that came from Park Bench, and they're the greatest people in Alcoholics Anonymous. And the moment I start judging, what I start saying is, I know what God wants to do in that person's life. I told you that night, that day when you came to speak in our center, I said, I learned a very valuable lesson to listen to the message, and I fell in love with you that day. You know, and I still do, and that was a couple years ago. So thank you for continuing to carry the message of God in Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, tonight I learned another lesson, and I ended the talk last week on, if you're the smartest person in the room, you have a problem. And on the way up here tonight, before I get into step 5, I want to tell you I learned another lesson tonight about a good, better, best. And it's really important. I think Shannon will tell you the same thing, and James will tell you the same thing. It's really important that you travel in a posse. And in your posse, you should do a lot of listening and not always doing the talking. And if you're doing the talking, you're probably not learning. And I was in the car tonight with some legends, you know, some heavyweights. You know, my mom, she's been in the program for almost 50 years. You know what? Russell's technically my sponsor. I'm not saying he's not my sponsor. He's my sponsor, but my mom's really, you know, the go-to in my life. She definitely speaks into my life. But I was in the car with a guy by the name of Raton tonight, and happens to be Sheldon's sponsor, and is a member of the East Naples men's group, and is just a really incredible person. And I love to be around men and women that really do the deal. And when I'm around them and I hear about people that have lost children and stayed sober, that have lost career, that have lost marriages and stayed sober, that have operated in a place of grace and dignity, it reminds me that there's nothing that I can't do or nothing that happens to me that is any excuse to take a drink. And Matty Fioran is one of them. He's just a guy that has been through a lot. But tonight I heard something that I thought I really never thought I would hear this. And to show you that when you're around people, to be listening. And my mom was having a conversation with Maddie, and Maddie talked about having tickets to the World Series game in New York while Derek Jeter was the hottest ticket out in New York. And he had tickets, good tickets to the World Series game. But he also had an AA commitment at the same time. To me, I'm like, well, get someone else to fill the commitment. It was like a no-brainer. Don't you know anybody else in AA? That's what I said to him. Don't you know anybody else in a home group? And what he did was give up his tickets to the World Series game for his home group. And I already saw some of you just moving in your seats. So that's ridiculous. But this is why I wanted to share this. And I'm not up here to tell Maddie's story, but I am going to tell a couple different highlights. And I want to show you that you don't know what it takes until you do everything you need to do. I know people that do less and they have less recovery. And then I meet a man like Maddie that says he gave up tickets to the World Series for his home group. And then I started and first I judged him in the car, just like a couple people in the first row. I saw you roll your eyes and you were like, oh. And I even made a snide comment. Well, Well, Maddie, I wouldn't even give up movie tickets like that. I did it just like that. And I felt like the Holy Spirit told me to shut up and listen to what I just said and just listen. And then I realized, here's a man where the proof is in the pudding. Not a man that went out at 19 years or 23 years or 25 years or 30 years. Not a man that relapsed when his son, may God rest his soul, passed away. Not a man that went out when his wife went out and the marriage broke up after 35 years of being married or some long-term time being married. Here's a man that weathered that storm. And after weathering all those storms, gave the tickets away because Alcoholics Anonymous is more important to him than watching a game. And the reason I bring it up, I'm not putting him on a pedestal, was that tonight my eyes were open and I said, you know what? That's where I want to be. And I admit that I'm not there. And that's okay. I'm not there yet. But God has placed people in my life to show me where I could be. And when we see this in our book, and it says that all people of faith have courage. And we don't put down people that have faith. That's a person that is exercising their faith. The book of James says that you have faith and you have action, you have nothing. So faith without deeds is nothing. And I was witnessing and hearing this, and then he went on to tell another story that I just couldn't believe. Another story, like he had fourth row tickets to see the Allman Brothers, and he gave those away. And I was like rolling my one eye back in my head. I'm like, oh my God. Once again, good, better, best. If Shannon continues on the road that she's in, she will get to be where Maddie's at. Not that there's a hierarchy, but there's something called life experience in Alcoholics Anonymous. To walk with men and women that have faith for an extended period of time and that have weathered the storm of life, that have gotten to a place they haven't arrived, but they certainly guide a path for us to see that all things are possible. And I share that with you today because I thought it was so poignant in that I said, don't be the smartest person in your posse. And I'm very grateful that I'm not even in the top 4 in that 4 people that were in the car. That there was so much wisdom for me to learn from. And I want to tell you something. It really did change the way that I look at commitment. And I've been in Alcoholics Anonymous now this time 24 years, my previous time 7 years, my previous time before that 2 years. I'm not saying that you should have any type of breaks, but I've been in Alcoholics Anonymous for a very long time, and I learned something about commitment tonight that I did not know to be admirable like I learned. Why do I bring that up? I bring that up because if we didn't come to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, if we don't have support network, if we don't have people around us that we respect, if we're our own best leader, if we're listening to our own messages, we can never get to good, better, best. I was listening to Pat Rogan tonight with Step 5, and he's just one of those great guys, one of those great legends in Alcoholics Anonymous. We have so many wonderful people. With the share we heard on 10-year Shannon tonight was an incredible share. James's presentation was great. There's nobody that's bigger than anybody in AA. We're all sharing all different information, all different ways. Paul Baker's here. He shares it one way. It's all different ways, and it's all incredible if you're listening. And I heard Pat say something about Step 5, and he said, if you're having trouble with Step 4, it's a Step 1 issue. I really love this. It's in his last talk at the 12-Step House. He said, but if you're having a Step 3 issue, it's really a Step 1 issue. As a matter of fact, if you're having a problem with any of the steps, it actually is a Step 1 issue. And why is that? At first, when I heard it, I was like, because initially I want to be right, and I never said that myself. What is Pat right? It's all Step 1 issue. So immediately I judged him. I almost wanted to hit pause. And then I realized what he was saying. It is a Step 1 issue. Every time that I feel that I'm powerful, I've now stepped in the place of where God would be, and it becomes an issue about me other than God. So it really is all a Step 1 issue. If I go out and I step out into sin, it's a Step 1 issue. If I'm not willing to write my my step 4, it's a step 1 issue. Why? I don't feel I'm desperate enough that I need to write. When I wanted to get high, I was desperate enough to do whatever it took. Drive as far as it needed, go wherever I needed, stay out as long as I needed, break laws as much as I needed to. And when we first come, I told you the story a couple weeks ago. One of my guys said to me, I want everything that you, I want everything. I want to be around you. I want what you have. And I said, listen, and the same thing I told you, Rob. I said, listen, you got to go to 2 meetings a week with me. If you want what I have, you go to 2 meetings a week with me and you figure it out. The guy goes, I'm with you every day. And he's got like 3, 4, 5 years of sobriety. He goes, I want exactly what you have. And I said, well, you got to be at the Thursday night meeting. He said, no, I think there's a game that night. I told you the whole story. I haven't seen him since. Because in Alcoholics Anonymous, when it's all said and done, there's a lot more said than done. I got that from Russell. I didn't make that up. And it's true. How free do you want to be? You know what? I'll tell you something. I want to be Matty Fearon free. And I'm not putting him on a pedestal. I want to be like I have the tickets to Hamilton, Broadway, front row center, but I got a commitment in AA and I'm calling you to see if you want the tickets. I want to be, I'm not there now. But that's where I want to be. I want to be that guy where it's so automatic that Alcoholics Anonymous and God saved my life that if I've already have a previous commitment, it doesn't matter what big deal comes around town. I'm sorry, I already have a commitment. And that's what I learned tonight. But going back to it, is everything is a step 1 issue. I can't make that meeting. That's a step 1 issue. It means that I'm more powerful. I'm not worried about relapsing anymore. I'm not worried about taking a drink anymore. So I got this. And every time I say no to something in Alcoholics Anonymous, what I'm really saying is I really got this. Every time I say no to a commitment, when I say I can't pick up a chair, what I'm really saying is I'm powerful. When I'm saying I can't clean ashtrays because I don't smoke, and I really detest smoking, and people that know, they know that. I'm like an anti-smoking fanatic. But if I'm not willing to clean ashtrays, I have a step 1 issue. If I'm not willing to bring out the garbage, that's a step 1 issue. You see, how it looks like is that I'm not willing to work the 12th step, but really what it is I've now stepped into the place where I'm not desperate anymore. And recently, something that neat has happened to me is I've become desperate again. And I hope that happens for you. Like, I'm desperate to change. I don't know how much time we have left. I don't know how much time I have left. I don't know if I'm at 24 years. I think Maddie's maybe at 35, 36, something like that. I don't know if I'm going to get there, but I want to accelerate the process, and how I accelerate the process. And I don't mean to get more years of sobriety, but I don't want to have to wait that long to get there. So what I do is I'm going to do what those guys did and those ladies did. And that means going to any length. That means when it says that we're going to put pen to paper in step 4, and last week I glanced over it because I really not glanced over it, but I didn't really talk about the mechanics of step 4 because I really wanted to talk about what step 4 is. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory. I wanted to talk about that because a lot of people get to places in their sobriety and they're really not taking a searching and fearless moral inventory. And you know when you hang out with them. You know when you go to shopping with them. You know when you go to the golf course with them. You know when you go to the theater with them. You know when you go to sports things with them. I was hanging out with Josh and some of his friends. We went to a sporting event in Orlando. And I'm telling you, I don't know if these guys put on a show. I'm not saying they did. Brooke is here tonight. I'm not sure if they put on a show for me. But these guys were praying in the room. They were talking great stuff. I'm not sure. Sometimes when I am around, the people do raise it up, a little bit. But I hung out with these young, cool, great-looking guys, and they were God guys outside of Alcoholics Anonymous. You see, the way that we act in the meeting is not what's important. Everybody's spiritual in the meeting. God bless you. Thank you. Take my chair. It's how we're acting outside in the parking lot, in the Publix, in the bank, on the phone with someone that doesn't speak clear English from India that calls herself Sally. Those are the times when your program needs to be put into place. How are we acting to the person that can't do anything for us? Matthew 25, what we do for the least of these is what we do for God. And so all these things build up and make up what step 5 really is. You know, someone I really love and respect and is one of the most incredible of people in Alcoholics Anonymous that I've ever met said something last week. This person said that step 5 is more about the listener and less about the person that's giving the step 5. And I don't see it that way. I'm not saying I disagree, but I'm saying I don't see it that way. I believe the step is about confession. I believe the step is about that I'm holding stuff that I don't want to share with you, stuff I'm embarrassed about, stuff that I'm resentful at, ridiculous resentments. I had a resentment against the East Naples men's group tonight. I just want to just put that out there until Maddie told me that, and then I was like, look how ridiculous I am. If I'm not willing to share what's going on inside me and confess, then I get sick. And the more I hold inside, the more it seems real in my own head, my own thoughts. It has my own accent, and I think it's a real thought when it's not a real thought. Admit it to God, to ourselves, and to another human being. When I admit to another human being what's really going on, my resentments that I have in my own life, I'm joking about that resentment, it's small. You guys know, some of you guys know, if you've been here before, I've said this before in Old Step series, I had a very serious resentment from the young man that shot me. And I have one eye, and I got shot when I was 12 or 13. And for years, it was a big resentment. And I had his first name on my lips. And whenever someone would say something about my eye, I would immediately go to angry at him. You know, if he didn't shoot me, I wouldn't be having this issue. If he didn't shoot me, I wouldn't have this. And I have this big thing built up. In step 5, in the confession step, on one of the columns, it's where were you wrong? Where were you at fault? Now, obviously, if you were raped or molested, you're not at fault at all, of course. So it's not across the board where you could take responsibility. And I thought in this one area that there's no way that I was wrong. I was shot. And if you spent 5 or 6 minutes with me, I would tell you on any given day, even in the Publix. People are like, hey, you know, I'm like, gee, I was shot. People say, you're not a very good parker, because when you have one eye, it's hard to judge distance. This is a true thing. This is a true thing. And my parking is always very off. So I park, and to me, it looks like it's parked right, and then the whole back end of the car is completely out in the back. This happens a lot. And people would say to me, the half of your car is, out. And I would say, I was shot. Do you have one eye? And as I'm writing my 5th step, as I'm sharing my 5th step, because this is why it's admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being. We need that other human being. And that other human being is important, but to me, the part that's the most important is me revealing it. And my sponsor says to me, well, can you tell me the story? And I said, well, when I was 12 or 13, we're in the backyard, and I gave this kid the gun. What gun is that? It was my gun. So you gave the kid your gun. And I said, yes, I gave him my gun. And where was it at? It was in my backyard. And whose idea was it to shoot the gun and play the gun game that shoot at each other? Well, it was really my idea. It was my idea. So he said, I just want to go over it with you one more time. It was in your backyard with your gun and your idea, and you've been carrying 20 years that another 13-year-old, not a man, a 13-year-old, shot your eye out, and now you're 34 and you're still bringing him up every week. And when that was said to me, I realized, where was I at fault? Everywhere. The whole thing was my fault. And not only that, I had to go back this year and meet him. I got to go back and meet him after 40 years on our 40-year high school reunion and say to him, I'm sorry. I was really angry with you all these years, and I realized I'm sorry for giving you the gun. And it's true. I really meant it, and I felt it. And when I did that, when I did the 5th step, I was released back 24 years ago. But when I did the 9th step, and when told him just this happened this summer, I was doubly released. You see, if you don't do the 4th and 5th step, you won't even know where you need to let stuff go, because I was walking around like I had some type of justifiable anger. A young man shared with me this week on how he was molested when he was younger, and he just can't let it go, and he can't let it go, and he can't let it go. And I explained to him, listen, you absolutely can let it go, because you can forgive the person and not forget what happened, and let yourself off the hook so that you don't have to take the poison every day of your life and expect that person to ever feel the pain. And the moment you forgive, you've let them off, regardless of what happened. I'm going to tell you a small thing, certainly not rape or molestation, very small thing. But about 6 or 7 years, I lent this guy a chunk of money. It was a chunk of money to me. It may not be a chunk of money to you, but it was, over 1,000, under 2,000. To me, that still, even right now, feels like a chunk. And it was a short amount of time. He was going to give it back to me within a week. You know how alcoholics always have like a specific time. It's Tuesday. It's always Tuesday. And he's like, listen, can I borrow this chunk of money? And my grandfather, JC, taught me, don't ever lend anybody money that you're not expecting back, because that's a resentment waiting to happen. But this alcoholic sounded very convincing. And so I gave him this chunk of money, and he didn't pay me back. But not only didn't he pay me back, and I'm not a Facebook person, but just during this time, I happened to be watching his vacations on Facebook. He's skiing in Colorado. He's in Paris at the Eiffel Tower. And it's eating me up. He doesn't even remember that he needs to pay me back. I see him in meetings. He's high-fiving me, showing me his Rolex. And I realize the only person that's hurting in this situation is me. I know this is small. Guess what I did? Forgave him the debt. Next time I saw him, I ran up to him. I said, listen, I don't know if you remember 2 weeks ago, but you know that money I lent you? Pass it on. He goes, no, I plan to pay you. I go, not anymore. I let it go in that instant. And guess what happened? Instantly free. Never, I'm telling you, I promise you, never thought about it after that. He buys a new car. Great. You got a new apartment? Wonderful. You went to France? Great. The moment I can let that resentment go is the moment that I become free. Why are we talking about that? Because you need to write down all resentments, little and small, and share it with your sponsor or the rabbi or whoever it is, the person, and let this stuff go. People that hold on to resentments have very precarious sobriety, which means precarious. And usually our walk have squishy faces and have heavy, and shoulders are hunched back, and they're always taking people's inventory. The more you can let go of the resentments in your life and see that you, let me just show you column 5 in this, column 4 in this. One of the columns. I shouldn't have lent the money. That was my fault. I know not to lend money. Over $30, you're not getting any money. Okay? Don't hit me up after the group. I have no money on me right now. I'm totally at fault for giving him the money. My partner John doesn't lend people money. I'm in awe of him. People come up to him, they ask him for money. He goes, I don't lend money. I'm in awe. It's a very simple statement. He just goes, no, I don't lend money. And he has no problem. And he says, pass the salt. He doesn't even think about it. I'm sweating. I'm like, the person's going to be homeless. It was my responsibility. I can't believe it. What if the Lord is listening right now? My responsibility was not to lend the money. I have to take responsibility. Everything that has ever happened to me in my life, except for one, when I was younger, and something happened to me, I can take full responsibility. Now, where can I take responsibility for that thing that happened to me when I was younger that happened to me? When I act out now, I'm not acting out now, and that's not a joke. But in the past, when I did act out, that was my responsibility. Because yes, it happened to me when I was 12, 13, but I acted out on it when I was an adult. So I know better. And so I have to take responsibility for my life today because victims never recover. And victims stay in that past situation and they act like 12-year-olds when it happened to them at 12. And they act like 6-year-olds if it happened to them when they were 6. And they act like 15-year-olds when it happened when they're 15. And it happened, and we don't grow up past that time until we're able to release it. That's how powerful the 4th and 5th step is in resentments area. Now fears. I thought, I'm like fearless. Like somehow I'm fearless. Like you've ever met an alcoholic that's fearless. There's no alcoholics that are fearless. One of the reasons we drank is because we're afraid. We're afraid of success. We're afraid of failure. We're afraid people don't like us. We're afraid that nobody, we buy everyone in the bar drinks because we want to be liked. I had a lot of fears and I didn't think I did. And when I showed my sponsor the fear list and I had like 7, he says, forget about it. Go back and pray on your knees and ask God to show you all the things you have fear from. And there's great cheat sheets on the internet that'll give you examples. Fear of the police, fear of being alone, fear of dying alone, there's a million fears that you may have. And don't be afraid to use those. Don't be in fear to use those lists. And then get them and share them. Get them and share them. You don't have to carry your fears alone. I was able to be so free just by sharing them. That's the fears. And here's the sexual harms caused others. That it's not, for me, I thought the sexual harms caused others was me to write everyone I had sex with. Like a brag list. I brought out my 4-step, like, is this the sex part? Like I was excited to share with my sponsor. I'm like, is this the sex part? I couldn't wait to get to the sex part. He's like, no, this is where you harmed others by lying, deceiving, taking advantage of, being more than you were. This is stuff that you did to harm people involved in sex. That then is not so sexy anymore. I misunderstood. Let me start this list again. And he said to me, and those people that you harmed in the sexual things, you're going to have to go back and make amends either to them or institute. Let me check the look of my writing there. And then the harms caused others. There was a lot of that. My mom's one of them. My mom and dad. My mom reminded me the other day that I destroyed Christmas. That we were a beautiful Catholic family. We were always together on Christmas. It was a big deal. My grandparents were there. My parents were there. My sister's there. We're about to have Christmas and I was missing. And I know that people are laughing. Well, it wasn't very funny to my mother that just said it this week after 40 years later, she's still hurt by it. They didn't know where I was. They didn't know I was a drug addict. I was completely missing. I came home. I told my mother that I was, what did I say? I was I didn't want to wake them, so I was sleeping in the motel. And then she said, well, show me the motel. And I pretended to bring her up to a motel and say, I didn't want to wake you, and so I slept in this motel. And it may not sound like a big deal, but my grandparents were crying. Because it wasn't like I had done it 10 times. This was my first time destroying a holiday. And they were crying because they thought I was dead because I'd never done it before. And that's harms caused others. And I needed to make amends to that. And I'll get to that in the 9th step. And that's a terrible thing. It may not seem terrible now, but it was terrible then to watch your 80-year-old grandparents cry and destroy the holiday. What, you think you just bounce back for that, pass the turkey after that? No, you don't just pass the turkey. That Christmas is now gone. My friend Jerry, on his 40th birthday, they brought in bands and they had it catered and all that kind of stuff. And it was a big deal. And all his family came in from Ecuador. They were going to have a big party. And he said he needed to go buy new shoes, and he never showed up for the party. He went on a run. You see, and I'm not saying don't laugh. You can laugh because we're not in it anymore. But it's not funny to the people that think you're dead that are in the party. Little Ecuadorian people come in on the plane, and they... ¿Qué pasó con los niños, los zapatos? Cuando regreso? And he misses the entire holiday. And each one of those jabs into our family, each one of those knives into our family, it takes a toll on them. And I get to write that down and I get to admit it. All the fist fights, Long Island, all the things I destroyed, all the parties I destroyed, all the people's houses I destroyed because of my macho and I'm a tough guy and all that nonsense. All the people when I lived in Minneapolis and I went out there, nice people. The people in the Midwest are nice people. You know, salt of the Norwegian people, Swedish people, nice people. Smoking crack in their houses. What's going on? Why is my toaster missing? You're such a nice boy. Where's the VCR? Yeah. Doesn't seem like you would do this. Write it down. And guess what you get to do in the fifth step? You get to light it, you get to let it go momentarily. Knowing that if you continue to work the steps, you're going to get to go back and repair some of this. That doesn't mean they're going to forgive you. We'll get to that in the next couple weeks. But at least you're going to have an opportunity to forgive yourself. Because if you're weighted down in this program, if you're walking around with all this baggage, if you can't look another person in the eye, by the time you're done with this steps, there is no one, I want to share something with, there's no one on planet Earth that I cannot look in this eye. When I see anyone on this planet, I don't have to go, I want to tell you something, this is not a joke. I don't have to go to the other side of the street. Shannon, can you say that? When you've worked the steps and you can say that, there's no great, and she's like, yeah, of course. There's no greater feeling. I can go, there's nobody in the world that I have to duck. And the one person that I have, one or two people, the women that I haven't been able to make amends to, if God ever allows it, I'll get to that during that, but God ever allows it, I will walk up to them and try to make it right. That's what's the power of the fifth step. You know the power of the fifth step? Confession. The Bible says to confess your sins to one another, and those that are faithful and just, they'll pray for you and you'll be forgiven of those sins. I don't care if you're not a Bible person. When you share it, every religion in the world, by the way, has a confession step. Every one. Because everybody knows, every person on the planet knows that you cannot be burnt. Even, listen, no disrespect to the Scientologists here. Even the Scientologist people, whatever they're doing, they even have a thing where you touch things and you have to let go. As crazy as that cult is, they even have confession. Even cults have confession. Everybody knows that you cannot walk around completely stuffed up in a spiritual constipation and be able to be free. You have to have a spiritual enema to walk around free. As a matter of fact, we're going to name the talk, Step 5, the spiritual enema. God bless you guys. I'll see you next week.